Hello, and welcome to this mental health report brought to you by the Pan American Health Organization and the government of the Virgin Islands. Today on the program, we have with us Doctors Anita Chandra and Joy Acosta here to talk about community resilience. Welcome to the program, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
The pleasure is mine. Now, let's start with you, Dr. Chandra. Tell us a little bit about yourself in the context of the community resilience builder.
Sure, happy to. Yeah, my background is in public health, and along with Dr. Acosta, I've been working on disaster resilience and long term recovery for almost the last 15 years, working with communities in the US, but also globally on how to build better response and better recovery to a range of disasters, including hurricanes and other natural disasters.
Wonderful. Dr. Acosta?
Yeah, thank you. Similar to Anita, my background is in psychology, though. I'm a community and cultural psychologist, so I specialize in thinking through culturally responsive, population-based approaches to things like building resilience, and have been working with Anita on this issue again over the last 15 years or so.
Wonderful, ladies. Now, as part of the mental health and psychosocial support project that was launched here in the BVI know that you guys facilitated a workshop. Um, Dr. Chandra, let us start with you. Tell us a little bit about the workshop and its objectives.
Sure, yeah, happy to. Well, our goal is to help communities, and particularly community leaders representing a range of organizations and sectors, whether health or social services or emergency response, really figure out a better way to work together to not only prepare for disaster, but also to support community members after disaster. And so we used one of the tools that we've created at RAND, working with other communities, and adapted it for what would make sense in the BVI. We then use that to help community members work through a series of steps, kind of self-assessment, community assessment steps, to determine where there were assets and vulnerabilities in the communities, what organizations could bring to the table, and how different community groups could be helpful in building more robust response and recovery plans. We actually held a couple of workshops over a period of time so that we could introduce concepts of resilience, have community groups work through exercises, do some planning in between the workshops, and then come back together to refine their plans.
And in terms of the workshop and the community participation at that time, what level of feedback did you get from the participants, and did they find the workshop to be vital at that time?
Sure, I'm happy to start, and Joy should add on. I think we got very positive feedback from all of the groups that were involved. Certainly, some communities are starting at different points, which is great because everybody's got their own unique needs, but they also have a shared concern about building resilience to disasters. People felt like the tools were very practical and could be adapted and applied to their own unique settings, which is really important. And we try and make it fun so that we're working through a lot of steps. We're introducing tough concepts, and we're pushing people to build plans and processes. But we also want to make them feel comfortable in that process. And so we like to build in really kind of interactive exercises, ways that people can learn to relate to each other. Because during and after a disaster, it's really those community relationships that are most essential.
Definitely. And Dr. Acosta, break it down for us. What exactly is community resilience, and how do you feel that the workshop will better equip persons here locally to respond to disasters or similar situations like we found ourselves back in 2017 with Hurricane Irma?
Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly I can start, Anita, and please do jump in. But the way that Anita described a little bit about the kind of work that we were doing to build both relationships across community organizations and community leaders is really one of the defining features of community resilience. So it's not just about having great plans that are on the shelf when you need them. It's not just about having, a strong set of infrastructure or resources, at your disposal, but it's also about making sure that you have kind of the connective tissue where organizations are able to connect into the community in embedded ways and connect with individuals when needed, and that you do have community leaders that are equipped to provide feedback about what's needed to make sure that the assets that are available are being used in optimal ways. And really, with the ultimate goal of creating communities that are able to adapt to and withstand, stress and stressors of all different types. We were specifically focused on the hurricane here, but some of the skills and some of the kind of unique aspects of the community resilience builder toolkit is that it attempts to really help people think about how better to nest and align within efforts that are already ongoing, and instead of trying to create something new. So how can you utilize the workshops that are already happening to provide some information about mental health, or how can you use the neighborhood groups that already exist to kind of gain some momentum in doing things in these areas. So those are a couple of, I think, the high points. Anita, feel free to weigh in. I'm sure you have a couple of additional thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think you really covered it well. I mean, those steps are essential, and I think one of the things that we also get people to think about is in the context of kind of community experiences and histories prior to the next disaster, how it can build on some of those strengths and those kind of cultural strengths and those assets. As we work through the Resilience Builder Toolkit. And that's really important for some of the kind of mental health and trauma issues that were so important as part of this kind of collective BVI effort. But absolutely agree with what Joy said.
Well, wonderful. I'm not sure if since the training, because you said you held a couple of workshops, I'm not sure if you had any feedback with regards to how far they would have progressed with this community resilience builder, with all of the tools and the toolkits to help to build that capacity locally, whether it be individually or collectively within certain communities. Did you hear any feedback? How are they now with building the resilience in the communities?
Sure. It's definitely a long process, but one of the things that we made as part of the effort was that they had some tangible kind of milestones that they had to meet, which was really creating the beginnings of their community plan. And so between the first workshop and the second workshop, that was really their task. We checked in with them periodically with individual communities to support that process. And so a lot of the communities were able to get farther along with their plan. We can't expect communities to have complete plans because it is a process, but they definitely made important headway and now have a lot of the tools to continue that process.
Definitely. Well, once again, ladies, I'd like to thank you for coming here on this brief mental health report. You just tell us a bit about, community resilience, and with your final thoughts, share with us some motivating things that, we could continue on to ensure that we continue to build capacity locally to manage future occurrences.
Well, I'll tell you, Joy and I have been doing this a long time in a lot of different communities. And as much as we're seeing the disastrous effects of climate change and a range of events that are really challenging communities across the globe, one of the things that's enduring is the elements that make some communities more or less resilient. And so we feel really good about the kinds of tools and what we call the levers of resilience that we help communities strengthen or build, because they're consistently the features of communities that are able to recover more quickly from disasters. Communities with strong ties between individuals, communities where organizations have planned together, communities where the government and nonprofits are working closer together. it doesn't matter what kind of disaster. We see this time and time and again. And so if communities continue to invest and keep the focus on strengthening those capabilities, it will go a long way as we deal with the changing world.
Wonderful.
And I agree. And I think some of the real kind of milestones that we saw, in addition to the ones that Dr. Chandra already described, is just some of the work that came about as a result of those workshops. Is, you know, there was a specific collaborative group that was formed among the community leaders to kind of keep each other on track over time. There were governmental agencies brought in to explain some of the processes for getting small grants to support some of the community resilience plans that had been developed during the workshop. There were new neighborhood groups that had been activated. You know, there were inventories of assets that were being developed and added to the work that the Red Cross is already doing in the region. And so some of that work, some of those relationships, you know, we hope that it endures and that it does really help to support the BVI as you all move forward together stronger.
Wonderful, wonderful. Once again, thank you, ladies, for coming on the program. You've been listening to this mental health report, and this mental health report was brought to you by the Pan American Health Organization and the government of the Virgin Islands. I've been your host, Director of Light Communications, Natasha Letson. I want to thank you, ladies, for coming on the program again to share this information, you know, as part of the mental health and psychosocial support project. So once again, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you. Our
Natasha.
pleasure.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into this program.